Have you ever wondered what lies just beyond the glow of the Christmas lights? What lurks in the shadows while families laugh and carolers sing? These are the stories they don't tell you, moments when Christmas turned into a nightmare, when the warm spirit of the holiday gave way to something much colder and far more sinister. Let me tell you about 3 Christmas hauntings that will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about this festive season. It was supposed to be a night of celebration. It was Christmas Day in 1922, and the old manor in Kent, England was filled with music, laughter, and the glow of candlelight. But no one could have anticipated how the night would end, or the terrible secret the house would hold for years to come. The story begins with a young bride. She was radiant that day, her white gown shimmering in the golden light of the party. She had an idea, a game of hide and seek to amuse her guests. But this wasn't just any game. She wanted to hide somewhere clever, somewhere no one would think to look. She slipped away from the laughter and chatter, climbing the narrow stairs to the attic. The air was heavy with dust, the only light coming from the moon filtering through a small window. She found an old wooden chest tucked away in the corner, big enough to fit inside. It seemed perfect. She climbed in, pulled the lid closed, and waited. But she didn't know the lid would lock from the outside. The minutes turned into hours. Downstairs, the party went on. Guests searched for her, calling her name, their voices echoing through the house. But no one thought to look in the attic. As the night wore on, the search turned frantic, but she was never found. It wasn't until years later, decades in fact, that the truth came to light. A new family had moved into the manor and decided to clear out the attic. When they opened that old chest, the stench hit them first. Inside, they found her. A bride's skeleton still in the tattered remains of her gown. Since then, no one has been able to live in the house for long. Residents report strange occurrences every Christmas, laughter echoing in empty rooms, footsteps pacing the attic. And the most unsettling of all, if you dare to go up to the attic, you might feel cold, delicate fingers brush against your skin. Some say it's the bride still waiting for someone to find her and finish the game. Christmas of 1975 was supposed to be magical for the Carter family in Toronto, Canada. That year, they decided to buy a vintage Christmas tree topper from a flea market, a delicate glass ornament that shimmered with an almost hypnotic glow. They thought it would add a touch of nostalgia to their holiday. They had no idea it would bring something else into their home. The strange events started almost immediately. On Christmas Eve, as they admired the tree, the ornaments began to rattle. One by one, they shattered on the floor as if struck by an invisible hand. The family dismissed it as a freak accident, but things escalated that night. The mother swore she saw a shadow move near the tree. The children complained about hearing faint humming, like an old Christmas carol coming from nowhere. And the father? He shrugged it off, telling everyone they were letting their imaginations run wild. But on Christmas morning, things took a chilling turn. The father was found lying unconscious near the tree. When he woke, his face was pale, his hands trembling. He claimed he had seen a woman dressed in a long, old-fashioned gown standing by the tree. Her eyes were lifeless, her expression cold. She pointed at the topper and whispered, "You've taken what's mine." Terrified, the family contacted a local historian who traced the topper back to a widow from the 1800s. She had treasured it and was buried with it after her death. Somehow it had been stolen from her grave and passed from owner to owner. Paranormal investigators later confirmed the topper seemed to hold some residual energy that grew strongest during Christmas. The Carters didn't wait to find out more. They got rid of the topper, but they say they can still hear faint humming every Christmas. As for the topper itself, no one knows where it ended up, and maybe, just maybe, it's sitting on someone else's tree right now. Our final story takes us to a small inn nestled in the snowy woods of Vermont. It was Christmas Day in 1932, and the inn was buzzing with activity. Guests had gathered for a holiday feast, but as the day went on, strange things began to happen. It started with little things, doors slamming shut on their own, lights flickering even though the electricity was fine. One guest claimed their chair moved by itself, but the other guests laughed, chalking it up to a prank. But then the apparition appeared. A man dressed in a 19th century innkeeper's uniform stood by the fireplace, his face shadowed. One guest, a skeptic, walked toward him, laughing as he reached out to touch the figure. But the moment he did, the man vanished, and deep scratches appeared across the skeptic's back. That's when everyone panicked. The innkeeper's name was Thomas Bradford, and he had died on Christmas Day many years earlier. He'd been robbed and murdered by traveling guests, and his spirit had lingered ever since, seemingly exacting revenge on anyone who disrespected the inn. One by one, the guests fled. But before they left, they noticed something chilling. Written in the frost on the window were the words, "This is my inn. Leave." The inn is still there today, operating under new ownership, but visitors say the haunting hasn't stopped. Those who stay during Christmas report hearing whispers in the night and waking up to find scratches on their bodies. Some say it's best to avoid the inn entirely during the holidays, but others, they can't resist the thrill of meeting Thomas Bradford themselves. Some guests have even tried to communicate with the spirit using Ouija boards and other methods. They report eerie sounds in the night and objects moving on their own. The inn has become a hotspot for ghost hunters and thrill seekers alike, each hoping to catch a glimpse of the vengeful innkeeper. So, if you're ever in Vermont during the holidays and you're feeling brave, you might just want to pay a visit to the haunted inn. Christmas is a time for joy and celebration, but for some it's also a time when the veil between the living and the dead seems thinnest. The next time you gather around the tree or step into an old house on Christmas, ask yourself, what spirits might be watching? What stories might they want to tell? And most importantly, will you listen? As you celebrate, remember, the spirits of Christmas past might be closer than you think, waiting to share their tales. Gap 2S. As the snow falls gently on the quiet town of Winter Hollow, an unsettling legend stirs beneath the festive cheer. It is said that every Christmas Eve a mischievous poltergeist awakens, causing inexplicable disturbances in the homes of unsuspecting families. Gap 2S. This spirit, known as the Christmas poltergeist, is believed to be the restless soul of a young boy who perished in a tragic accident many Christmases ago. His playful yet eerie presence is marked by flickering lights, objects moving on their own, and the faint sound of laughter echoing through the halls. Gap 3S. Families have reported hearing footsteps in the attic, finding ornaments mysteriously rearranged, and even glimpsing a shadowy figure darting past the twinkling Christmas tree. Some say that the poltergeist seeks to relive the joy of a holiday he never got to fully experience, while others believe he is searching for something or someone lost to him. Gap 2S. Despite the unnerving encounters, many in Winter Hollow have come to accept the poltergeist as a part of their Christmas tradition. They leave out an extra stocking and a small gift, hoping to appease the restless spirit and bring a sense of peace to their holiday celebrations. Gap 3S. So, as you prepare for Christmas, keep an eye out for the signs, the flicker of a candle, the rustle of a present under the tree, or the distant echo of a child's laughter. For in Winter Hollow, the Christmas poltergeist is always watching, always waiting, and always eager to join in the festivities. Gap 2S. Are you prepared to share your holiday with a ghostly guest? Only time will tell if the legend is true, but one thing is certain. Christmas in Winter Hollow will never be the same. Gap 2S. Gap 2S. As the clock strikes midnight on Christmas Eve, the streets of Winter Hollow fall eerily silent, save for the faint, haunting melody of a distant carol. Gap 2S. Legend has it that these are no ordinary carolers, but the restless spirits of a choir that vanished without a trace over a century ago. Gap 3S. Known as the haunted Christmas carolers, their ethereal voices fill the night air, sending chills down the spines of those who hear them. Gap 2S. The story begins with a choir group eager to spread holiday cheer, setting out on a snowy night to sing carols door to door. Gap 2S. But as they reached the outskirts of town, a sudden blizzard engulfed them, and they were never seen again. Gap 2S. Now, on the anniversary of their disappearance, the spectral choir returns, their voices echoing through the empty streets. Gap 2S. Residents have reported hearing harmonies that grow louder as they approach, only to find no one there when they look outside. Gap 2S. Some claim to have seen ghostly figures dressed in Victorian attire, their faces pale and eyes hollow, standing in the snow. Gap 3S. Others speak of an overwhelming sense of sorrow and longing that accompanies the carolers' songs. as if the spirits are searching for something or someone to release them from their eternal performance. Gap 2S. Despite the fear they invoke, many in Winter Hollow believe that listening to the carolers' eerie serenade brings good fortune for the coming year. Gap 2S. They leave candles burning in their windows, guiding the spectral choir on their ghostly route, hoping to hear the haunting melodies that signify the spirits have found their way. Gap 2S. So, as you settle in for the night, listen closely. Gap 2S. The faint strains of Silent Night or O Holy Night might just be the voices of the haunted Christmas carolers wandering the streets in search of solace. Gap 2S. Will you brave the chill and open your door to the spectral choir, or will you hide away, hoping their mournful songs pass you by? Gap 2S. In Winter Hollow, the line between the living and the dead blurs, especially during the most magical and mysterious time of the year. Gap 3S.